If a little green is good, more is even better. Now, back to Green is Good with John Shigarian and Mike Brady.
Welcome back to Green is Good, and today we are so humbled to have Barton Alexander, who is the Global Vice President for Alcohol Policy and Corporate Responsibility for Molson Coors. Bart, welcome to Green is Good. You have first of all, you have a rock star resume, which I'm not going to read the whole thing here because I really want you to get to talk about everything you're doing in the sustainability revolution and the green revolution. But Bart, welcome to Green is Good, first of all.
Hey, thank you, John and Mike.
And second of all, I just want to share with our listeners that, you know, your history is like I just said, a rock star, magna cum laude graduate from Harvard, London School of Economics. But more than that, you're the cool guy. You're working for Molson Coors, doing the green revolution there. And I just want to know, what does your job title really entail?
Well, you know, maybe I could explain it the way I explain to my kids who wonder what I do every day as well. And I tell them, you know, hey, I have this job. It's a great job. I get to live in Colorado, and I get paid to help a company make great beers and make money the right way.
You know what? Amen. That's a great explanation. And again, we're really humbled to have you because, you know, when we started our show, we started small. It was a half-hour show with just friends that were doing some green things we brought on, and it's grown where just the last couple of weeks we had Ford on, we had Alcoa on, we've had Honest Tea on, and all these amazing international brands, Lipton Teas come on, and we're just so honored to have you and Molson Coors represented on Green is Good because you truly are doing, you know, not only going to talk a great talk today, but we know you're walking a great green walk. So why don't we get right into it? What does sustainability mean at Molson Coors, Bart?
Well, you know, sustainability here is part of our overall corporate responsibility commitment. It's fundamental to Molson Coors. You know, it's interesting that when many people get a job like mine in a company, they hire a staff of people, they put together a big plan on how the company's going to do things the right way, and then they spend a lot of their time trying to engage the senior management and the middle management to say, hey, this is why it's really important. That was not my experience at Molson Coors at all. It was really quite the opposite. In fact, I went and started talking to our senior leaders when Molson Coors was formed and found out, first of all, they were doing a lot of the right things already, and secondly, they had plans to challenge the expected and do even more in the future. For example, I went to meet with our head of supply chain and said, so need to talk to you about some sustainability agenda. And he said, you mean things like coming up with common metrics across the enterprise for energy, water, waste, set targets, reduction, improvements? He said, I'm doing that already. Let me tell you what I'm doing.
Wow.
It was really kind of exciting.
So you already saw that they had already the makings of green DNA, so you were brought on to scale that.
Yeah, and I came out of the Coors business, and I knew a lot of the heritage of that company and its commitments. Bill Coors, many years ago, said waste is just a resource out of place. You know, he was one of the people who invented the recyclable aluminum can. So it's been a part of our company heritage for some years. Our business in Canada, now Molson Coors Canada, has the proud tradition of John Molson's commitment to community programs there. And our business in the UK came out of the Midlands, the British capital of beer, Burton-on-Trent, where that company had been involved in community activities for generations. So it's really part of our culture. And we now call our culture in our company, it's our brew, or to our French-Canadian employees, it's notre recette, our recipe, and it's really just part of who we are.
Well, that brings up a great point, talking about a part of who you are. I remember growing up watching the wonderful Coors commercials on television, of course, filmed in Colorado with the water behind, Mr. Coors. And that's what was sitting in New York City, where I grew up, the Coors water and the water source made it was the magic, was the legend behind Coors back in the day. And of course, water is still the core of the beer product. Why don't you talk about what does sustainability mean to the Molson Coors brand with regards to your water initiatives?
Well, you're right about the heritage of water, and it was, if you take each of the businesses, it was Adolph Coors came to Colorado and started a beer business on Clear Creek because of the quality of the Rocky Mountain water.
Right.
It was John Molson founded the Molson Brewery at the headwaters or at the mouth of the St. Lawrence River in Montreal because of the water quality there. And actually, Burton-on-Trent is known for the monks having discovered the water there that makes great beer. Our CEO put it this way. He said he believes that everyone in the world should have access to water as fresh as we used to brew our beers.
Wow.
That's our commitment. He a couple of years ago, he signed the CEO Water Mandate.
What does that
which
mean?
Is a global commitment that companies make to be a force for sustainable water. We looked at that. We started some internal work streams working with our operations people, our public affairs people, our community affairs people, and last year adopted a global water strategy that's really based on the principles of the CEO Water Mandate. I could put it in the kind of bureaucratic terms of the mandate, but the way we talk about it is that this has 5 things we need to do. We need to be good stewards of the drops we use. We need to be community-minded about the ripples we leave. We need to understand and educate others about the emerging global water crisis. We need to engage local stakeholders to promote sustainable fresh water for ourselves and for others wherever we do business, and then say what we're doing and show others why we're doing it. Now, we have a ways to go. We are not necessarily the best and most sustainable company in water in all of our operations. We do a very good job in the UK. We've got improvements we're making across our whole system, though. But those 5 platforms are very critical to how we move forward in the water space.
Gotcha. So then let's talk about the next thing to water is energy, because energy is what makes any business or any household, for that matter, work. How are you guys working with regards to the energy? With sustainability and energy, what are some of your initiatives that you've taken to make your company more energy efficient?
Well, we have energy reduction targets across the enterprise. Okay. And we report those on our website and show our performance against them. In the United States, our joint venture with Miller Coors is part of the government's Climate Leaders program. We are involved with similar activities in the UK and Canada. We think a really key part of all these environmental areas is disclosure. Yeah. So we're one of the early adopters of the Carbon Disclosure Project, which I think everyone knows is kind of the global scorekeeper on carbon. Right. It by being involved with that program and striving to be a leader in that program, it means what we're doing is transparent to not only environmental groups, but to investors and consumers around the world. We think that's a really important process, and in fact, we think that idea of disclosure has worked so well in energy that it really should work in water as well. And we were thrilled when Carbon Disclosure Project announced that they were going to start a water disclosure project.
Got it.
They were going to look at how they can become a scorekeeper on water. Water is a more complicated issue than carbon because it's a more local issue. But we've just announced that we are going to be the lead water user company in sponsoring the Water Disclosure Project.
That's amazing. So really what we're hearing here, what Mike and I are understanding and our listeners are hearing, is one of the key values that your companies run on is transparency and disclosure. It's
really key. Okay. If I could just explain where that comes from. Sure. I mean, our corporate responsibility agenda, which includes these water and energy issues, is really comprehensive. We have 5 platforms that we think are very important. The first one is we call it performance with integrity. It really means winning the right way versus winning at all costs.
Got it.
It's about making quality products that in the alcohol field are marketed responsibly is such an important part with concerns about underage drinking, drink driving, and so on.
Sure.
So we want to make great products that are brought to market the right way. Environmental stewardship. There's a team in our company called the Green Team. They figured out a way to brand this. They said, we have to save the earth. It's the only one with beer. It's the only planet with beer.
I like that.
I love that. All of our investments in our people being a great place to work,
right?
It's a core part of corporate responsibility,
Sure.
as well as being great neighbors wherever we do business. And then, taking our best practices through our sourcing practices. So we think that what we're doing in energy and waste really reflects the character of a company. And we're just trying to listen very hard to what people think is important, what our stakeholders think are important, our consumers, our many of the environmental groups, groups concerned about alcohol abuse. We really want to listen. We want feedback on how we're doing. And I'd encourage them to come out to our website and take a look and let us know what we think we're doing well. But even more importantly, let us know where we're not doing well.
So
let us know where we can do better.
And Bart, when you say your website, I want to give a shout out here, which it's a beautiful and wonderfully well done website. It's the molsoncoors.com/responsibility section that you're speaking of, correct?
Right.
Got it. So our listeners out there, molsoncoors.com/responsibility. It's truly very informational and inspirational at the same time. So Bart, let's switch the topic a little bit. Our listeners love to hear about the quality of water and what you're doing there. Obviously, energy is a complex problem that we've all been inundated with for the last 3 or 4 years, from global warming and solar and wind and all the and nuclear and all the opportunities. But it's a very complex problem. Let's get down to some simple things and tangible things that we all can understand and our listeners can relate to. Talk about the containers and and what you've done and the initiatives that Molson Coors has taken in terms of sustainability and your containers.
Well, packaging is an important part of the beer business. We want to have attractive packages that look great to our consumer, hold up. But what happens to them when we have to throw them out? What happens to the bottle? What happens to the can? What happens to the cardboard? So we have had initiatives across the enterprise to reduce the waste streams that come from our packaging. And to be honest, the beer business is a really interesting business because we certainly have global brands like a Coors Light, and we know how to take that brand to market around the world. And wherever we go, the brand has the same look, feel, and taste. We like to think it's the most refreshing beer in the world. That no matter where you buy it, brings that Rocky Mountain cold refreshment to your home. And I have to say, today, as we're talking, I'm looking out my window, and it's snowing in Denver. So we have that sense of Rocky Mountain cold with us, even in the springtime in Colorado.
Right.
But we also know how the characteristics of the market are very different in different localities. So, for example, in the UK, this involves downweighting and looking at using less materials in all of our packaging. We've done that with many of our brands, and we've become a leader in the beer industry, in working with the packaging industry to downweight our packaging materials. Similar in the United States. In Canada, there's an industry standard bottle and a recycling system, and there it's really just to make sure that as many packages as possible are reused again and again in an efficient and sustainable way.
Well, you bring up a great point because your title does say Global VP. So how does the Green Revolution, since you have a world view, which so few do, how does the Green Revolution look from where you're sitting with regards to, let's break it down to three areas just for this conversation: the EU, North America and South America, and Asia. Break down the Green Revolution and how your brand is affected in each of those regions, but also your own perspective on the sell-through of where is the greenest DNA in the world today, and where is it moving the fastest for the future.
I think that the key to the Green Revolution is both thought leadership on the part of companies, but also when consumers really get it,
right.
They demand green products.
Right. That's
where it really gets real. I could just give you an example that years ago,
sure,
the Coors business had a wonderful package. It was called the Stubby. It was this glass that the engineers had figured out a way to shape in a way that it almost was a sort of a rounded out bottle. And it was very thin, and it was very sustainable, used very few materials, used much less energy, went out in the marketplace, and consumers in the United States said, you know what, I want a long neck. It's a lot nicer to hold in a bar. It's a lot nicer to flash to your friends. And it just was a failure. we had come up with a thought leadership idea. We hadn't figured out a way to make it real to consumers. Consumers have changed. They care a lot more about those issues in the United States, in Canada, and I think throughout the EU. And I have to say there's greater and greater awareness of environmental issues in Asia and in Latin America as well. I think this is a global revolution, and it's taking hold in every corner of the earth.
So with where you sit and what you're tasked to do is, do you then take best practices that are working in the different regions that you manage around the world and then share them back? How much cross-collateralization on information and best practices intercompany is done?
Well, within the company, we do an awful lot of that. We have a global brand and innovation council that takes best practices and populates that. I have to say the packaging industry as a whole also involves the ability of companies to work across the lines of competition together. Many of us use some of the same suppliers, so best practices are moving quickly. The key, though, is consumer demand. If we come up with a great packaging innovation and consumers don't see it as a benefit to them, it doesn't work. And that's the key.
Gotcha. And where do you think the future is? I mean, from where you sit right now, where's the future going with regards to your industry and the green revolution, and how are you staying ahead of it?
Well, we like many things, it starts with listening. It really starts listening to your consumers and what they see, but it also involves opportunities to lead and educate. And by sharing best practices and explaining to consumers the benefit of a new package that's more sustainable, we think that it gets back to what I said I do to my kids. It's a way that we can build our brands and make money the right way.
Bart, before we brought you on the air, you said something that resonated with Mike and myself, and I want you to share this with the listeners because this is so important for people to hear. The issue of perfection versus process. Why don't you share your vision on that with regards to your brand, but also with regards to other people's brands and other people's movement in this green revolution?
Well, I think the key is we got to move forward, and progress is made by taking a lot of small steps. Sometimes big innovations occur, big revolutions occur, but many times it's lots of small actions. In the energy space, just an example of this might be Earth Hour, which is coming up soon across the world. This is just an hour an evening on a Saturday night that people around the world all turn off their lights for an hour.
That's right.
It's by itself doesn't change the world, but it tells people, it starts to signal to people that, you know what, if I just take a few small steps, and that's done by millions and millions of people around the world, that has a huge impact. I think that's really the way the green revolution works.
So you're saying it's less about perfection, much more about process.
It's get it right.
Get it right. Hey, talk a little bit about, our first half of the show, we had a wonderful author who's written books to inspire people who want to replant or reinvent themselves and become part of the solution, become part of the process and the green revolution. Talk a little bit about the evolution of Barton Alexander and where you came from and how you ended up where you are today and what it's like to be where you're at.
Well, my professional life has been one where I started out actually in the public sector, working on public policy issues in a lot of different areas. I got convinced that in that public sector career, the way you make change happen is when you get people working together. That's you got to get the nonprofit sector, government, and businesses seeing something that they can do together. When that happens, big changes occur. When they're fighting with each other, a lot of energy gets used up just in the squabbles. That's, I think, a key to moving forward in certainly alcohol responsibility, where you need government to play some role in regulation and quality control and licensing and rules about drunk driving and legal drinking age, but a lot of it has to be done by responsibility of companies, retailers, and consumers. And it's certainly true in the environmental area. So I've really had a career committed to trying to get various groups who maybe see themselves as being on different sides of an issue to recognize they actually have a common interest.
That is, and how long have you been in this new role at Molson Coors, with the title that you have right now?
Since the company was formed, which was about Molson and Coors merged about almost 6 years ago.
So 6 years you've had this. Wow. And in terms of what is your expectations? We're down to the last 2 or 3 minutes, Bart. And what are your expectations? When do you feel like you've been doing this now 6 years, but you have tremendous goals and horizons in front of you? When do you fully expect to meet your sustainability goals? And what pearls of wisdom can you leave with our listeners as we sign off today for them to get involved?
Well, if you don't measure it, it doesn't get done. So we do set annual performance targets. We have a major target for 2012 of things we want to get accomplished. We not only measure ourselves against our internal targets, we ask external groups to rate us, and we look at their ratings very importantly. We also ask for feedback from individuals, which is I hope your listeners really take you up on that offer to go out to our website and give us some response. That's www.molsoncoors.com.
Right.
But, I think a key here, there's two keys. One is top-down commitment as well. Last year, we set a strategic plan for the company, and our executive leadership team and our board of directors made being recognized as world-class in corporate responsibility one of the 4 strategic platforms for the company to meet its targets. It's up there, right, with how we treat our people, the growth of our brands, and our financial targets. It's a very impressive thing. That is not a fixed goal. We will never meet our goals because the demands of being a responsible company are always changing.
Got it.
This is a journey, not a destination.
Love it. I love it. Well, Bart, first of all, Mike and I are very humbled today from your perspective and your approach to the whole green revolution and the sustainability movement. It's truly been informational. It's also been very inspirational. We ask our listeners to learn more about what Bart was speaking about on molsoncoors.com/responsibility. Molson Coors is truly one of the great legacy brands in the world, and you really are leading the green revolution. And for that, Mike and I are very appreciative also for your time. We know you have many people pulling on your time. You have a huge role at Molson Coors. So we want to say thank you for your time today also, Bart.
Well, listen, I'm humbled to be able to play this role and certainly to be in the company of some of the other great businesses you've mentioned and leaders out of the NGO world. This is a growing community. Getting dialogue among us that you're fostering with this show is really important because these ideas are just beginning. We've got a long ways to go.
Well, I just want you to know that Mike Brady and myself today hold one up for you. We're toasting you today, and you've proven again that Bart Alexander and Molson Coors not only talks a great green talk, but you walk a great green walk. And for this, Bart Alexander, you are truly living proof that green is good.